Hello, everybody. Ciao. Not buongiorno. What's the other one? Buonrigio. Buonrigio. So my name is Sofia Waapiti. I'm from Ireland. I'm 46. And I'm new to the Breatharian community. This is my first time actually being with other people who are experiencing or keenly interested in this field or currently experiencing it themselves. I began this journey 23 months ago, and I've spent most of it alone by myself. In the south of Thailand and in the Himalayas, and a little bit in Sri Lanka, but mostly alone, mostly in silence, with my higher aspects and cosmic teams also. They've been with me the whole time. But so I haven't really shared so much, just once last year in Ireland, my experiences. So I'm really honored to be here with you today. And Nicholas, thank you so much for inviting me here. I share as myself, Sofia, but I also work with off-planet beings and different aspects of myself. So sometimes I speak as a collective. So let's just see how it goes. Maybe I'll share a little bit about myself, where I sprang from, how I came to be here a little bit. Ever since I was small, I had a connection with, I could see things other people couldn't see. I could see the energy in plants and the energy in the center of the chest of the human and in the two eyes. And the same with plants and animals. And when I was about 5 or 6, I told my mother that I wouldn't eat animals anymore. So she had to then learn how to prepare vegetarian food. And I remember I really didn't like it. Bean burgers and stuff like that. It was terrible. But I wouldn't eat animals from maybe the age of 5 or 6. But prior to that, I didn't really eat as a child. And my mom used to force me to eat because she thought I was going to die. So ultimately, I didn't really want to eat anything when I was young. So I think this was always my memory. I had regained the memory of living without food since a very young age. So this was my life when I was younger, and then I forgot this world. When I was about 7, I moved to another city, and I lost my connection with my spirit family, my spirit friends, and it didn't come back until I was around 21. When a friend of mine was diagnosed with cancer, and everything came back. The light in the chest, the light in the eyes, my deeper connection with Source, and my off-planet team, the inner earth beings, they all came back and guided me through a process with my boyfriend at the time to so he would be recovered from the cancer. So that awakened my my light body again, my connection to spirit. And from that point, I began to learn the art of meditation, and start to do vipassana, small, not the 10-day, but small silent retreats of just a weekend, where the food would be a little bit less than usual, eating twice a day, and also spending all our time in silence. So I did start this about over 20 years ago, and with the Tibetan Buddhists. And eventually I started doing more of this long Vipassanas 10-day with the Theravada Buddhists. So I did many, I don't even know how many. I did many of these. And I guess this was my reminder of eating less, needing less. So I just used to eat once a day because I didn't enjoy the breakfast. It was rice soup, so I never ate that. So I just had the vegetables once a day. And within the silence, this was a reminder, reminding me of my true nature, how this was a natural way for me to live. And I began to then study lots of different kind of arts, Seikim, Reiki, shamanism, lots of different healing modalities over the last 20 years. But the big transformation for me, and the foundation for, I believe, for me living this lifestyle, living stably in this lifestyle, was my training in Qigong. I went to China about, let's say, 10 years ago. I had a little organic whole food shop and a little cafe, and I sold everything, and I decided I wanted to totally immerse myself, to totally let myself go and be held. So some held in some system. It didn't really matter to me what it was, just to be held for a couple of years so that I could surrender and let go completely. How I described it to myself is to drop into my true potential. I knew then 10 years ago this was necessary for me to do. And so it ended up to be Qigong that I chose. I went to live in China for 2 years, and I studied with a few different masters. And it was really tough. It wasn't really enjoyable because we studied for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. And if I was sick, it was more the reason to go. I could never get off. He was always knocking on my door. Because if you're sick, even more the reason, right, to practice. So I would sit on a stool, even if I was crying, and I would just do my 8 hours a day, no matter what. There was no escaping. But this gave me a very solid foundation, a solid discipline, which is really needed to live this lifestyle. A discipline, a stability, and a foundation in spirituality, much deeper than I'd ever gone before. We would practice sometimes for 3 hours, up to 3 hours, in a static posture. And during this time, I guess you could call it maybe becoming friends or breaking down of the small mind, the ego, where my body literally started to break away. One side of my body was crumbling, half of my face, like the side of a cliff just crumbling away. And I was terrified. And this continued and continued until there was nothing of me left. I didn't exist in form, but I was still in my static posture, but it was my consciousness that was holding me together. I had no form. And this would happen over and over again in my static postures until again I was able to locate my form, but it was in a more refined state. And then I learned how to journey into my body, in through my veins, in through certain organs. So I was inside looking in my organs, looking out. So I went through this deep breakdown of my personal self, which brought me into my consciousness self, or my light body. So this was my first experience of having a light body, or knowing my light body. And also during this period in China, I didn't really like the food either. And so I used to just eat some, it was called mountain vegetables, they called them. Just, I don't know, they look like weeds to me, just off, from the side of the road that this man would collect. And I would eat just the mountain vegetables and white rice. So this is what I ate really for nearly 2 years. But ate very little because after, 6 months of this, you lose interest. So I would eat less and less. So this was also a natural arising, a natural happening. But all this time, I never heard of the word Breatharian, and up until actually, a year and 2 years ago, I had never heard of the word Breatharian or Pranic living. But I had known, that monks in mountains could live this way. But I had no knowledge of this growing up until I became this way myself. And then people started to send me information and Jasmine's books and videos and stuff like that. So China really, the art of Qigong, which is, Qi is like prana, and Gong is your inner life force energy. It's your inner reserve. So it's learning how to cultivate your energy from the inside, so you don't need anything on the outside. So this is the form of, there's thousands of forms of Qigong, right? But this is the form of Qigong that I was studying. Just inner cultivating of your Gong, of your Qi, of your prana. So this gave me the ability to be very self-sustained and not relying on the outside so much. Also in China, it's the largest population in the world. There's people everywhere and there's noise everywhere. And when I went, I was told I was going to be living in the sacred mountain. And there were photographs of I was imagining under the Bodhi tree doing my practice and stuff. But when I got there, the government, because Qigong was banned in 2001 in China, so there's only 12 forms of Qigong that are legalized now. And that could have changed over the last few years. But when I was there, so foreigners weren't allowed to go to this beautiful center. Only the locals, so only the Chinese. So I had to study in Beijing city, and we had to go to a park, which sounds lovely, right? But no, China parks are, everybody goes there to do their exercises, but also play all their instruments. So there's big sound systems with a group, maybe on the saxophone, another group over there, dancing salsa. So it's really, really busy. So I had to learn how to cultivate my inner Gong, my inner silence, so that I wouldn't be distracted from all the outside noise. And also my teacher would encourage me to let the animals, the mosquitoes, bite me, offering offering my blood, because he explained that it's the female mosquito that you're exchanging energy with. You're giving her the blood so she can have her baby, right? So, so there was a huge amount of discipline, a huge amount of self-discipline that I learned in China. The Chinese are just incredible for this. Compared to Western people who have very little discipline, very little patience, always on speed, always in a hurry. And where the Chinese can look 100 years ahead, they have this profound ability. But most of my teachers didn't speak English, so we had a translator on the phone, and also my teacher would say, if I asked anything, this is another part of my discipline, if I ever asked a question, or I was excited about something, some my internal work, or I was confused or frightened or anything, my teacher would say, never mind. And this is the only thing he ever said to me practically. And I hated him for it in the beginning. Then I hated myself for even asking him something. But in the end, I learned that I didn't need to ask anything. I just had to let it arise, whatever it was, and sit with it. And the answer would unfold. The answer would always come, because the answer's already there. It's just that the Western mind, the small mind, is just always looking on the outside. So this was another part of my discipline, was learning that everything comes from the inside, that everything is actually already there, waiting, if we don't hurry and speed. I learned that every morning when we wake up, there's an arc around us. It's like it's part of our field. It's part of our light body. It's a rainbow, and it's a half. It looks like a rainbow, and within that rainbow lies everything. Lies everything that we need for the day. Every single thing we need, every answer, everything we need is in that rainbow. And it's there every time what we call wake up, which is really going back to sleep, but we call it waking up. Everything we need is there within our field every single morning, or if we wake up at night, every single night, it's there. And because humans move so fast, they just kick over, they step over, what time is it? Quick, I better, do this, do my exercise, get my coffee, I'm late. They miss it. And that's why it's so important when you wake up in the morning to move slowly. Move slowly. Just sit, just be quiet. And when you move, may your actions even be slow. So you just have an opportunity to tune into all your tools. All the tools are in your toolbox. Everything you need is there. You could call it being psychic, being able to see psychically, or being able to see with your middle eye. Because most people just look with the side eyes. And we can't see anything. We can only see the material world with our side eyes. That's it. We can see the material world, the apparent world. We can't see the hidden world with our side eyes. We need to open the middle eye to see the hidden worlds. But most people, because of our training, we're taught to look with these two eyes. And, as most of you know, they're very limited what they can see. So slowing down in the morning, closing your side eyes, opening your middle eye. This is even a practice you can do. Close your side eyes and open your middle eye. And if you try this over and over again, eventually your middle eye will open. And it's like opening one of these eyes. It's like opening the side eyes. It's that simple. Life is really simple. All the, all the answers are simple. If you'll always know when something gets complicated, you're moving further away from truth. When something is getting more simple, you're getting closer to truth. Yeah. So I've gone off in a bit of a tangent there. Yeah. So just going back to the rainbow, everything is there, slowing down. Yes, so being in China was a huge part of giving me a stable foundation to live this lifestyle. And after I left China, my life was very different. I stayed in Asia. I've stayed in Asia ever since then. Didn't go back to Europe. And I began to spend more and more time alone, more and more time in silence for longer periods. So I spent up to 6 months alone in silence in different parts of the world. For like the last 20 years also, I've been working with the interdimensional portals where the ley lines meet. So I've been working on these ley lines for about 20 years. So the last 10 years I completely committed to going where I was guided. So I haven't had a home during this time. And I just go to different places I'm guided to on the planet to work with the ley lines and the interdimensional portals. So this also helps to raise my vibration all the time, being in these sites. But part of my discipline also was then learning how to become my own interdimensional portal. Right? So I can draw the energy, or I can bring the energy down. So I don't need to go to a sacred site to recharge. So anyway, I started to spend more and more time in silence, more and more time in the Himalayas mostly. And I would practice my Qigong. I would keep the same routine. I would do my 8 hours. I would do 5 a.m. to 8 in the morning. 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 5 to 8 in the morning, 3 hours Qigong. Then I would stop and I would have like a porridge, like oatmeal, but I'd have all my maca, spirulina, dates, all my super healthy foods in there. Then I would do another 2 hours practice of Qigong. And I would have my lunch at around 11:30, and I wouldn't eat again after that. My lunch would be like a local family would bring me, say, a dal and rice. It was mostly dal and rice because they were pretty poor, so there were no really vegetables in it, maybe an odd carrot. So I ate mostly this dal and rice for my lunch about 11:30. And then I would hike for like 5 hours in the mountain, come back at 5. Sometimes I would have a hot drink and did 3 more hours practice. So I would do this, and if I needed to communicate with someone, I would write. So I just remained in silence. And this is also a really important part of my transformation, because we lose chi. We give away our chi when we speak. Speech is powerful. Speech is not for chit chat. It's not for idle chatter. It's got a power. And we use a lot of our chi. We drain a lot of our energy from talking. So this is also where I learned how to cultivate my inner energy by not just wasting my chi with idle chit chatter. But I learned this from spending a long time in silence. So I became, and still am, particular about who I speak to and who I hang out with. And I just choose. I choose wisely. And I don't waste my chi with just talking about anything. It just doesn't, and also it doesn't interest me anymore, just talking about anything. Because our words hold power, tremendous power. So this is another part of the stabilizing a foundation for moving into a light body or living a lifestyle without food. I think the most important part of this is just referring to now living a lifestyle without food and liquids. Food and liquids are the same. There's food and liquid, there's liquid and food, right? So, yes, it's very easy to fast and it's very easy to reduce the food. But to be able to stabilize to a place where you don't need to eat and drink anymore, from my experience and what I teach and share, is that one needs emotional stability. Because if you don't have that, and you can go into a high of a good mood or a low of a bad mood, if you still go into highs and lows, you don't have emotional stability. And you can use then your emotion, discomfort, as a reason to eat something, right? So for me, this is a really important foundation to be able to live in a stable state of consciousness. Let's call it Breatharian consciousness. To be able to maintain that, one needs emotional stability. And what I mean by that is finding comfort in your discomfort. Being okay with your downs. Right? So humans have been trained to, accept all these emotions which are called positive, and accept all these ones which are called neutral. But these ones over here that are called negative, no, they're not acceptable. If you have a negative emotion, there's something wrong with you, there's something to be fixed, you should hide it, suppress it. It's just a big no. And humans have been trained for so long to believe this, that if an uncomfortable feeling comes along, they contract their field, which makes them smaller, which makes the field smaller, and then vulnerable to that strong emotion, and then believing in that strong emotion. So humans usually do one of two things. When a discomfort comes, they either push the energy down, which goes into the physical body, which is suppressing it, or push the energy up, which goes into the mind, the small mind, which goes into analysis. I need to fix this. There's something wrong with me. Why? And then the questions. You always know if you're asking any questions, it's coming from your small mind. Because the universal mind, the cosmic mind, never asks questions. We simply just let things unfold and arise. We don't question things. So we've been programmed for so long, earthlings have been programmed for so long to not do discomfort, that they think there's something wrong with it. When there's nothing wrong with discomfort, it's just a vibration, it's a resonance that's not pleasant. That's all it is. It's like the resonance of what we call positive energy. It's pleasing to us. Then the neutral energy is just neutral. But what we call negative energy, it just doesn't please us. That's all it is. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing to be fixed. There's nothing to be analyzed. And this is really, really, really important. I feel this is a really important base to live a lifestyle without food. Because a lot of people appear to start to eat because they don't feel comfortable. And when I started my journey, was July 2016, so 23 months ago. my team explained to me that when I'd stopped eating, that, well, it wasn't really about the eating, it was actually about the drinking. They said that if I want to take a drink, to check in with myself and ask myself, why do I want the drink? Is it because I'm thirsty? Is it because I'm anxious about something? Is it because I want the taste of the drink? To ask what it is, why I want this, what's going on. And every time I checked, it was because I felt uncomfortable about something. The food, when I stopped eating, when I stopped eating and drinking, thirst and hunger just disappeared. So I was never thirsty and hungry again. But with the drinking, I was a bit nervous at the start to stop drinking too, because I thought this isn't possible. It's not. I was frightened. I didn't think it was possible, even though my higher self and my cosmic team, off-planet team, assured me that I was already living this way for 3 years. But or had the ability to live that way for 3 years. But it was just a question of checking to see if I was uneasy about something, and usually it was that I was uneasy, and that's why I was going to take the drink. And then the second part is, if I want to take the drink still, so I recognize, okay, I'm uneasy, that's why I want the drink. So then I consciously choose, I'm conscious now. It's not just randomly going for the drink unconsciously. I'm conscious, I've said, okay, why am I going for it? Because I feel uneasy. And the second part is, again, consciously choosing whether I want to take it or not once I know that. So I can say, okay, yeah, I want to take it because I feel uneasy, so I'll take it. It's a conscious choice still, right? So it's still working for my highest good to take it. But I can also choose in that moment not to, because I'm aware, and that's also a conscious choice, and it works for my highest good. But then if I don't take it, then I have to work with the emotion. I have to work with the discomfort. I have to sit with the discomfort. And so what I learned to do, anytime I feel discomfort, the first thing I do, if I feel shitty, bad, anything, whatever happens, whether it comes from inside of me or outside of me, I say thank you. Anytime I feel like shit, I say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming up to be released. And I welcome my pain. Say it's fear. I say, welcome fear. I see you. I love you. I honor you. Thank you for coming here. I give you, everybody is entitled to their moment in time. Sit with me. Stay with me here a while. You're safe. You're seen. You're loved. You're honored. It's okay to feel afraid. Everybody does sometimes. And I would do this over and over and over. And I mean, I still do, right? But it's not so intense anymore because my emotions aren't so strong anymore. So any kind of discomfort I have, I invite it in, I welcome it, I say thank you, and I let it hang out with me. And what happens is, we're doing the opposite to what we normally do here. Normally, if we feel discomfort, we contract our field and we get smaller. So what I do is I open my field, I expand in joy, I expand in respect. So therefore, the lower frequency eventually raises up into the higher frequency. And the most it ever takes is 20 minutes. Never takes longer than 20 minutes. If you really sit and surrender and expand your field in joy, genuinely happy and genuinely saying thank you, feeling like shit for coming up, I see you, I love you, I honor you. It never takes longer than 20 minutes. And in this way I learned how to transmute, how to transform my my discomfort. And this is just, I mean, for me, this is the most important part of the whole thing. Everything else, this is like the foundation. This is definitely a foundation to be able to find comfort in our discomfort. Because this is what pulls us out of alignment. Being afraid of fear. Another thing humans have been taught, is to be actually afraid of fear. And that's when we contract our field and get smaller. But we can feel fear, but we don't have to be afraid of fear. It's just fear. It's just energy in motion. Emotion, energy in motion. So this is also really important. Feel fear, but we don't have to be afraid of fear. It's just fear is just the same. It's just a vibration. It's just a molecules vibrating. That's all fear is. And when they come into our field, it's not pleasing to our field. And I just want to say, this is really important part. I just want to say this before I go into the other sort of more Breatharian stuff, is that I don't want to go on too much about it, but it's really important. Most earthlings believe that if you feel discomfort, say for example fear, or anger, let's say, if you feel anger, most earthlings identify with that anger and believe that it's theirs, believe it's been caused by something outside of them or something inside of them. And they identify with it and believe it's theirs. But from my experience, it's that anger has got nothing to do with you, nothing to do with your little body form in this lifetime. It's a tiny, slim chance it has something to do with you. There are so many variables that earthlings have no idea about that cause disharmony or discomfort. It can be radiation coming from the ground, pollution from the air, the neighbors next door fighting, something in the collective consciousness that's been intentionally infused there. Different kind of energetic, cosmic energies that are coming down into the earth. Different energies that are coming from the inner earth and different beings that live in the inner earth. There's so many variables that humans have no idea about that cause discomfort. So any of these kind of energies, when they vibrate, so say your field is this size, when they come into your field, you feel a little bit of anger, then the intensity gets more, until it's actually in your core, in your center. And then you really feel the anger. And you probably believe it's something to do with you. Something to do with what your friend said, something to do with something you feel, something to do with your current human timeline. Something in your history, something that happened as a child or last week. But the probability of that is 0.0000, I don't know, I'm not good at fractions or numbers or anything, but it's so small that this is something to do with your current human streamline, timeline. The probability is that it's a factor that's coming from outside of you, moving through your field. So it's really important not to be identifying with your strong emotions, even the good ones, what we call good and what we call bad, because most of them have nothing to do with you whatsoever. They're just passing through. They're passing through your field. So we just let them pass. We just let them rock up, hang out with us a little bit, and rock off. Whether they're what we call good ones or bad ones. We don't have to identify with them. We don't have to make a story about them. We don't have to add a big tale onto them, and make them ours. They really have nothing to do with you. They have nothing to do with us. So when we remember this, we can sit back and be the observer and recognize, this is also important, I think, recognize that everything that comes into your field is merely there for your consideration only. You don't have to engage with everything that comes into your field. You don't have to have a reaction. Right? Most of you aren't even aware of how many things are even coming into your field. But it's important, the things that you are aware of, that you don't have to engage, you don't have to react or respond in any way. Everything is there merely for our consideration. Every feeling, every thought, every emotion, every person, every action, whether it's inside of us or outside of us, is merely there for our consideration. So this I think is this is part. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I'll move on to something else. But I feel this is something that's really important as a foundation to raise in frequency, to raise your consciousness, because living a lifestyle without food is basically moving into another state of consciousness. And many of us do that in like meditation. You know, you might meditate for 10 minutes or 2 hours, and you know what it feels like to move into that state of consciousness. But without emotional stability, you won't maintain that. You'll finish your meditation. Maybe you'll bring it into your day for a few hours, but it may go away. You may drop back into like third dimensional consciousness again. Which is extremely limiting and has a lot of, it's very rigid. Third dimensional consciousness is what most humans are living in, and it's rigid. It's like living inside a brick house all the time. Believing like in linear time, believing in the past, present and future, believing in duality, such a thing as right and wrong, having beliefs, believing in beliefs, would you believe they're good and bad. All beliefs are limitations, all of them. And obviously the one about, needing to eat and drink to survive is one of the strongest beliefs in the collective consciousness. And it's a myth. It's a complete myth. It's just a belief. If enough people believe in something, it becomes a truth. And over time, this truth that people need to eat and drink to live, to maintain the physical body, because humans have been doing it for so long, they've forgotten what it was like, when humans lived without ingesting animals and plants and minerals. It's just a belief. It's no more than that. And my understanding, even though this might sound radical to some of you, my understanding is that we're all of us, we're all living on energy, or prana. We just exchange energy with our environment. I just exchange energy with my environment, that's all. I don't even do it consciously. It's just like breathing. I don't consciously say, okay, inhale, exhale. Like I don't consciously say I'm exchanging with my environment. But because the state of consciousness that I maintain, these are the rules and regulations. These are the possibilities. There's different possibilities with each level of consciousness that we move into. There's different things that are possible and not possible. But yes, all humans are living this way without food and water. It's just that they don't realize, because you're eating and you think you need the food. But part of this expansion in consciousness is is we're getting our memories back. Our memories are coming back. We don't learn anything. We just remember. And how I see it is that, how to explain? So what we call the planet, this being that we live on, this being has moved, and all the other beings within her family, let's say in this star system, in this galaxy, all these planets have moved their position, right, in the universe. Let's say in the cosmos, let's say. And because of where all these planets have moved to, we've moved into a higher state of consciousness. So we used to be, let's say, in an atmosphere that we could live as in a third dimensional consciousness. But now we have shifted, we have moved, and we are living in an environment of fifth dimensional consciousness. So it's a big shift. It's a big shift, and there's a consciousness that's called fourth dimensional consciousness that has been created as a bridge to help us move from the third to the fifth. It's temporary. And part of moving into the fourth dimensional consciousness, which is like the astral, one of the requirements is emotional stability. Okay, so that's why I'm sort of stressing about it, because you can't maintain a stable state of consciousness in the fourth dimension without emotional stability. So it's really important. And as we have moved into this new environment, new atmosphere, we're starting to get our memories back of how we used to be able to live in our future, and because we live simultaneously in parallel lives. Some people call it past and future lives, but actually we live in parallel lives in a multidimensional fashion. So many of us are starting to remember this, and that's why we're remembering living a lifestyle without food. Because in fifth dimensional consciousness, our bodies change and we move into our light bodies. I'm sure many of you have heard of light bodies, or maybe already living in your light bodies. And light bodies, they simply don't need food. don't need anything from the outside world. So part of our transformation is that we're moving into our light bodies, remembering ourselves as fifth dimensional beings, and therefore not needing or remembering that we don't need food. It's more about remembering than anything else. And like I said, all of the earthlings on the planet are already living this way, but it's just the programming and the belief systems that tells you need this many vitamins, this many minerals, this many, what's the other word? Calories. You need to eat, have these vitamins. So this programming has led people to believe that they need to eat. But eating is not necessary, neither is drinking. Everything, how we actually get our life force energy is we just exchange energy with our environment. So if you can imagine that, it's like what we breathe. We don't even really breathe. We don't even need the breath. Because we actually don't breathe through the nose into the lungs. We breathe through all of our pores. And our pores opening and closing is how we exchange energy. So And this happens unconsciously, just like the breath. So my experience of it is that when I inhale, all the pores in my entire body open and stretch out on my inhale. They go out, out, out. And as they go out, my whole body starts to break down. And I give all my energy, including my body, out into my environment completely. So I disappear on the inhale. Then on the exhale, I draw all the energy from the entire cosmos back in through all my pores into the smallest part of my being. A tiny little black dot, let's say. And this is the process. This is what's continually happening with all of you. It's happening. You're all doing it. I'm consciously aware of it, but we're all doing it. And this is actually where we get our life force energy. And this is part of it. This is part of it. It's not all of it. But yeah, this is where we get most of our life force energy from, the different levels of energy or chi. There's different kinds of energy. There's different kinds of chi. But this is a simplified version to explain to you now, right? Rather than go into details. So on the inhale, every single cell in your entire body goes out, sending out all of our energy, all my energy, until they get lighter and lighter until I disappear. So I give myself over completely. I surrender. And on the inhale, I bring the whole entire cosmos back into myself, into the smallest part of my being. And this is the process of how we get life force energy. We just exchange with our environment. We don't take from the environment. So we're not taking the animals and killing them and eating dead flesh. We're not taking the plants, killing them and eating dead plants. And eating, the minerals and eating dead minerals. Because really when we eat, it's pretty challenging on the physical body, eating, the whole process of eating. Digesting is one of the most exhausting things that the human body does, is the whole digestive system. It's exhausting. It uses up most of our energy. And also what we're putting in, if you think about it, is just, rotting flesh, whether it's plant flesh or animal flesh. It's dead. Unless you're unless you literally go down on your hands and knees and start eating the grass, then there's some life in it. But otherwise, most of us have been eating dead, rotting flesh and putting that into our bodies and then trying to digest it. So it's actually challenging for the physical body. But what I learned from not ingesting food and drinks is that when I can't remember exactly when, but when we do stop eating the food, the whole body goes through a massive transformation. So it goes through upgrades, let's say. And the system that we call the digestive system transforms into a system for energy. So it's in the small intestine where we actually cultivate and store energy. It has nothing to do with digesting food. So our whole system is about gathering, cultivating, and storing energy. So I'd say my body has been doing this for about a year. It started 2 years ago. This is like 1 hour. So I'll just speak for another 15 minutes, and then maybe for the last 45 minutes I will we can do questions and answers. How does that sound? Yeah? Okay. Hi, I can see you with my glasses. Oh, so nice, yeah. Oh, look at you two little birds over there. Sorry, because I don't like to put them. So I'll just quickly, because I was keeping like 15 minutes, so maybe I'll just share my transformation. I'll into living in a light body or a lifestyle without food. I'd been spending a lot of time in the Himalayas in silence, and I had been doing long hours of Qigong, like I explained, and I met a group of beings that are not from this planet. They came to see me when I was in the Himalayas. They were called the Elohim. And they explained to me that I had already entered my light body a year ago, which I had been actively working on myself in the Himalayas, just through my own through my own learning. I didn't study it or learn from anybody. The Qigong taught me how to access the lower diamond. Meditation taught me how to access the upper diamond. And it was Sufism that taught me how to access the middle diamond. And when I was able, and this was over years, so when I eventually was in the Himalayas, I just started working on the middle diamond, or the heart center, or the heart behind the heart. And then when I eventually opened this and connected with the central diamond, I was able to draw the connection. I don't want to go into the light body talk too much, but I was able then to connect my 3 diamonds and expand into my light body, or Makaba, some people call it. So because I had entered into this state of consciousness, let's say, these beings came to me and told me that my light quotient was such that I didn't need to eat or drink anymore. And I just laughed. I mean, I was terrified. And I thought, this is ridiculous. Because I'd never heard of this. And I was very frightened because I was alone up in the mountains. So I said, no way, I'm not ready for that. But they did invite me to join them in a mystery school. And I had never had a teacher, like a real teacher, like a spiritual teacher, a human one. And I thought maybe I never would. But then these dudes came, the Elohim, and they offered to be my teachers and said I could train in an off-planet mystery school, and I agreed. And so I began training with them. And about a year later, they came again, or 6 months later, they came again, and they said, I had been green juicing for about 4 weeks, and I was it was the equinox in September, and I was on a volcano in Indonesia doing work on an interdimensional portal. And they came again and they said, if you want, you don't have to eat and drink from now, you're ready. And so I said I would try it, and I tried it for 3 days. And after the 3 days, I was really frightened because nothing changed. I was completely normal. I was hiking on the volcano. I sort of went into shock that nothing changed, and I became frightened because I was also alone. And so I climbed down the volcano and I asked for a juice, and the misunderstanding, I got a potato, and I ate the potato, and then after that I went green juicing again for about 2 weeks. But again, I was frightened, of this idea of not eating and drinking. And then 1 year later, they came again, the Elohim, and they said, we'll support you if you'd like to make the transition. And for some reason, I wasn't doing anything particularly spiritual at the time. I wasn't particularly eating well. I'd been touring Australia working, and I was eating terrible food. But something inside me was really excited, and I said yes. So we planned that evening to start the process. And from that evening, it was the 6th of July 2016, I stopped eating and drinking. And but after that, I started to drink for another 3 months because I was a little bit scared of that. But I went through. Let me see. 6, I have 5. Yeah. Let's see. So I went through. So basically, my body went through. Let's call it like psychic surgery. So I was introduced to. Sorry, my foot's getting sore. I was introduced to a team of off-planet beings, and they were going to work on me, my body, and they were going to work on my organs, some of my glands, and they were going to, basically you could say, upgrade my body in a way that would help me to expand into another light body, because there are many, many light bodies, and also to be able to live a lifestyle with no food and drink. So I got help doing it. And so I received about 3 or 4 days of being, let's say, having surgery, psychic surgery, which was pretty challenging. I was asked, I was introduced to the people who were going to work on me. There were 2 kinds of beings. There was one being that they were small. They kind of had black hats, like when you see the Vietnam in the rice fields, those hats. They had the head like that, and then underneath they had loads of little like arms coming out, like little tentacles. And they were preparing my body, and it was like they were the nurses, for example, and they were preparing the body. Then the next beings were, like, say, something like the doctors, and these were beings that had very large faces that looked like suns. They were beings that looked like suns. The body was just sort of long and slender, but the head was huge, like a big sun. And these beings were the ones that were doing the work on the glands and the organs and my skin. They worked also on my skin. Prior to this, about 3 years prior to this, I also had received some surgery about every 3 months for 3 years. On the side of my head, on the right side of my head. I used to get scars about 4 times a year on my head, here and here. And they would last about 3 days. And I didn't realize then, but I had agreed to this, to go through this process that I'm in now. I had agreed to receive these, I guess you can just call them like tweaks or upgrades to help me to maintain the level of consciousness, to maintain a light body, to be able to live without food. To be able to live without food and water in society, I mean. It's very easy for me. I've spent the most of the last 2 years alone. So it's been very easy for me to maintain this lifestyle. But when I went last year to Ireland for 6, 7, nearly 2 months, I was in a city, I was with my family, I was with loads of people every day like this, working privately, and I was doing workshops. And this is the reason that I got the upgrades, to be able to do that, because that's not easy. To live this way with societies and in city environments where the energy is very dense. It's challenging. I was challenged. I had to swim every day. In the morning, for the lunch break, I used to swim, and then in the morning and the evening, I used to have to go into a park and just lay down on the roots of the trees. I don't have any particular practice. I don't do Qigong. I don't do breathing techniques. I don't do anything. I just live in this way. I don't do sun gazing. I have no rules. There's nothing I have to do. But the one thing that I am aware of is that I need to be in nature. I need to be surrounded by trees and clean air, or the ocean, a body of water. I do need the support of the nature spirits and nature. And also the other thing that gives me, so this gives me support. This environment supports me. So I've been living in this kind of environment for the last 2 years. The other thing that gives me food or is like a backup is joy. Joy feeds me. So I get life force energy from nature, but I also get it from joy, from being joyful, from being happy. Happiness gives us, it's like, is prana, is energy. So we need to make sure that we give ourselves like a big spoonful of joy every day, because without joy, real joy, and I don't mean ha joy, like I'm so happy, artificial joy. I mean deep contentness in your heart. Like for me, what gives me joy is doing my gardening every morning, and then like watering the flowers. So then all the little birds come and then they sing. So then I listen to the birds and that gives me joy. And then I water the garden, and then, the dry clay connects with the water, and then there's a sound. And I listen to that sound, and there's a language in that sound. So I listen to the language of the clay, and that gives me joy. So I have very simple things that give me joy, as I live alone. But it's just small things like that. Speaking to frogs, listening to the wisdom of a praying mantis, speaking to snails. These things give me joy. And this gives me food. This is like how I start my day. This gives me life force energy. So joy is an essential part of living in this lifestyle. Lots of joy, and also a natural environment. So it's been easy for me, I have to say, because I haven't been living with my family. Don't have children. I have no husband. I have no partner. I'm just alone. So I know this has made it easier for me. And but then going into a city environment, I could feel my light body get smaller. I could feel it shrinking. So then my ability to hold the energy was less. So that's why after that I've chosen not to spend ever like 2 months in the city again, maybe 1 week at a time. But yeah, so the upgrades I got were to actually assist me to be able to work in societies and help societies, and even go to cities and work in cities. But I'm only, I'm new to this. I'm only like, 2 years. So I'm still like a sort of a virgin in the field. So it'll take me time. But I did feel, definitely my field gets smaller. And then one day I just said to my aunt, I think I'm dying. But I meant my energy body my light body was dying. And I asked her to get me some pineapple juice, because pineapple juice was the drink that I drank after I stopped eating. I drank pineapple juice sometimes. So it was kind of a comfort thing. So when I was in the city, I drank pineapple juice, because I was scared, because like that emotional thing I was saying, I wanted it because I was frightened. I thought my light body was dying, and I chose to drink it. But then when I drank it, I realized it did nothing, right? It does. And over time, when you stop eating and drinking, the taste also eventually goes away, so that lovely flavor that might, that's what I missed when I first stopped. Maybe some of you know that as well. It's the flavors, that we missed. But then, even if you eat something or drink something, the flavors go. Like I lost my sense of smell for food straight away. And I stopped. But then my sense of flavor, I suppose a year ago, I'd say. So then everything tasted really bland. It's like, God, is this really pineapple juice? Yeah, so it starts to, I don't know why it happens, but yeah, we just start to lose, everything just tastes the same. So then there's even more the reason not really to desire it, even in like a moment of fear or something. Yeah, so my transformation was happened in Thailand. I went through 4 days of this, like, say, 3 or 4 days, I can't remember, of this intense, like, say, surgery. And my team asked me if I wanted to feel it, if I wanted to see it, if I wanted to be aware of it. And I said I did want to be aware of everything except pain. I didn't want to feel pain. But if you go to the dentist and you get an injection in your gum and you don't feel the pain, but you can still feel them pulling and stuff, around. That's what I felt. I could feel the pulling in my body, but no pain. So this was extraordinary, and this was challenging, because I met a lot of other beings who I'd never seen, who were in the room. They were surrounded by off-planet beings, and I became frightened at one stage, and because there's sort of a sense of a feeling of dying at some point. I actually felt I was dying. Like all of me was dying. I was disappearing, but even my consciousness. And I became frightened at one point. And then this being that came into the room, I guess it was, I guess you can say part of the angelics, not the archangels or angels, but angelics. This presence, I call it grace. It came into the room, and it everything just became calm and peaceful, and I completely surrendered. And at that moment, I completely surrendered to spirit, unequivocally. And I have ever since. And that was the transformation for me. Just complete surrender to spirit, or my spirit self. So I completely surrendered my small mind, my thinking mind, or the ego, 100%, and I completely trusted in my spirit self. So at that point, I invited and allowed spirit to lead in every aspect of my life. And that's how I've been ever since. And I also think that's a really important part of living in a light body, and living in expanded consciousness, and in a stable way. To have complete trust in spirit, and your own spirit self, you can call it. But I think without that, there's going to be doubts, and then doubts will make the journey jerky. But that's part of the journey too, right? It was my jerky journey too, until I got to this extreme point where I thought I was dying. Maybe I was. It was a sweet surrender. It was really sweet surrender. And this has been with me. This has been with me ever since. It's grace. I call it grace. It's like what's in the background all the time. It's what holds everything together. Like it's what everything goes to, and everything comes from. It's a state of grace, and this is part of expansion into the light body, and this is part of what you could call Breatharian consciousness. It's a state of grace. and it leads us into a place of joy, but real joy, the deep inner content joy, grace, graciousness, into a place of self-authority, self-mastery, responsibility. What I mean by responsibility is being able to respond, being able to respond consciously, not reactionary. So I became conscious of my thoughts, my feelings, my behavior, and my actions. So I choose my thoughts. My thoughts don't just come in. If they come in, I choose what thought I want. I choose the feelings I want to have. I choose my behavior, and I choose my actions. I consciously choose these things. This is part of the state of grace. And this is what's really important for humans to step up into now. Because what we know as everything you've known as your beliefs, your structure, what's possible and not possible, is part of a three-dimensional world, a three-dimensional consciousness. And this is going away. This is falling away. So it's really important to step into our self-mastery, to step into being responsible, and to choose. That's free will. That's the one good thing about being an earthling, is actually humans have free will, and no one bloody uses it. It's each one of you has the ability to choose your thought, choose your feeling, choose your behavior, and choose your action. And this is part of self-mastery. This is important. This is important for stepping into fourth dimensional consciousness and into your light body. To stabilize in it, I mean. And you can call it the state of grace also. So I have this in front of me. I don't know what I don't have names really for many of these things, but let's say like a sacred feminine energy, something like that, is always in front of me, always showing me the way. And behind me and around me is a state of grace that's always, letting me know it's okay, but also, kind of pushing me forward, So I've learned how to embrace all my discomfort, all my fears. I invite them. So if I have fear, I always take fear in one hand and I feel fear in my torso, right? But then I invite her counterpart. So let's say courage. It doesn't have to be the same every time. I take courage in my other hand and then I feel courage in my body, in my torso. I feel what it feels like. And then I feel both simultaneously. I feel courage and fear. And it's like this sort of heightened energy in the body, right? That's, I'm terrified, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm scared shitless, but this is exciting. It's this kind of energy. And this energy, let me see if I can finish on this, how to explain. So this is moving from third dimensional consciousness into fourth. This is moving from duality, moving out of duality. So we take the two opposites because they're not opposites. They're lovers. They're partners. They're one. They've always been together. So you take, who was it? It was fear and courage. So we take them both and we become the alchemist, right? So whatever stage you're at, you can do this, right? Even if you don't have a light body, you can do this. Because if you take them, they can both start as a snake. They sort of snake around the spine. Right? If you have expanded into your ascension column, they snake around the ascension column. If you've expanded your light body, they snake around the light body. And they move like this. Until they join and they shoot out the top of your head. This is a very simplified term explanation. They shoot out the top of your head. Boom! They become one. And you move into a new kind of emotion where there are no opposites. And these emotions are what I explained earlier: graciousness, joy, command, self-authority, self-mastery, certainty, a command of a situation, respect, and compassion. These are the new emotions. These are emotions are without opposites, and these are emotions of fifth dimensional consciousness. So when we invite the counterpart of our discomfort, we become the alchemist, and we make the transformation into a new state of consciousness. And this state of consciousness, the state of grace, Breatharian consciousness, there's no real name for it, right? I mean, we just make up all these names. But it's just a simple state of consciousness. That's all it is. It's uniting duality, finding comfort in your discomfort, and also, this is something I won't discuss now, but the other thing is dropping all beliefs. All beliefs are limitations. So first of all, we recognize that we have beliefs. First of all, we can list them all, and we have thousands of them. Don't think you just have 3 or 4 or 20. You list your beliefs, then you recognize which ones are strong holding beliefs. Then you recognize which ones you can soften. And then you recognize that you can even let go some immediately, just like that. Because we've been holding beliefs since we were very small, and a belief is just like an energetic field. It's like a bubble that wraps around the body. It wraps around your field. And they're not negative. They're something that we call in ourselves consciously to help us, in different circumstances as we grow up. They're also part of the collective that have been infused, but so we take them on, and what we're not taught to do is we're not taught to discard them when we're done with them. We take on all these beliefs, but then when they stop serving us, we're meant to chuck them. We're meant to throw them away, but we don't. We just keep them. And they start building up a film around our field, like a block, like a barrier, right? All these beliefs. And all beliefs are limitations. Even the ones that you think are good ones eventually don't serve you anymore. So it's really important this is the other important part, to just recognize what beliefs you have, see which ones are strong, see which ones you can soften, which just simply means maybe this is true, maybe it's not. That's softening a belief. Maybe I won't die if I stop eating, maybe I will. That's softening a belief. And already that's giving spaciousness to your belief. Until eventually you can say, yeah, of course I don't need to. What am I talking about? Of course I don't. I won't die. And then that's just discarding the belief. So beliefs are just like energetic, they're entities, they're like beings. And they're just like around our field. But it's important that when you let go of belief, you say thank you. It's always important to be grateful for everything. All the great stuff and all the shitty stuff. We're grateful for everything. So because you call this being in, you call this energy in to protect you or help you at a certain stage. So when you're letting it go, it's to say thank you. It's to have appreciation and gratitude. That's really important. That's also a very important part of this transformation into Breatharian consciousness, gratitude. So I think that this, let me just check the time. Yep, so I'm going to finish on that, even if it's a little bit abrupt, because I want to leave open questions and answers. And I'll put on my glasses so I can see. So does anyone want to ask a question? Yeah. Yeah, you with the lovely, yeah. Oh, you shoot the mic. Oh, I don't think it's turned on yet.
Okay. Thank you for your sharing. You mentioned the etheric surgery, and I wonder, I'm very curious about the difference that you feel in your physical body before and after, if there are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you, Lovey. Yeah, there's been immense changes. I didn't really go into it because, but yeah, I've gone through immense physical changes in my body. Um, um, so, I don't know. So, for example, it's so vast, it's so big. I don't know where to start. Yeah, I've gone through quite like a lot of discomfort. Sometimes it's painful. You know, when I stopped eating and drinking, I lost weight, and I'm already thin. I lost a lot of weight. But my team told me that I think they said within 6 months that I would regain my weight back just by itself. So, so when the weight started to come back, it came back in a really unusual way, like the inside of my thigh would suddenly come back all by herself, but it would be painful. Like I actually was in the Himalayas at the time, hiking, and I thought, oh, I better stop hiking. Maybe I'm too weak. You know, I thought it was pains from hiking, you know, from walking. But this was my first. This was my first experience. But actually, it was just growing. The muscle grew back by itself. And it was painful, like muscle pain after exercise, you know, that sort of good, bad feeling. But then, like, you know, part of my face would would get weight back, and you know, my arm, and it was really painful. So this was like an uncomfortable part of gaining the weight back, but it all came back. And yes, and I've gone through some unusual experiences where I was once swimming in the ocean, and I wasn't swimming. I was on my back, relaxing, just looking up at the sky, and then from the top of my spine all the way down to my coccyx, it cracked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All the 33 vertebrae cracked all the way down. And this sounds a bit gross. I've never shared this before. This sounds a bit disgusting, but I was lying there, and then this cracked. My head went back, completely flying back, and then all this like black liquid just was coming out of me. I thought it was blood. I thought I was like dying, but it was just, I think it was coming out of like my anus, right? It was like, I think it was residue maybe of like stuff, but it was all this like, looked like ink, you know, from the octopus. This black ink just started coming out, and this was nearly a year after I stopped, you know, eating. That was a very strong experience, and yes, I have, you know, because the energy, you know, so what happens is the pituitary gland opens, right, awakens, and sends energy down the back of the nose, down into the cavities, the sinus cavities, right? And this fills. In the inside, you know, the brain is two sides of the brain. There's two brains, really. And then at the bottom, there's another little pocket called the third ventricle. And this is also started to build up with energy, right? So this became very painful inside the third ventricle. And then as the energy went down into my sinus cavities, this also, you know, at times became very intense and very painful. And of course, then my you know, my whole digestive system has been changing. It still is. I'm still going through all this process. And yes, sometimes like about a year ago, every single hour, I would feel these waves of energy coming in, and I would have to stop whatever I was doing and lie down. And if I was outdoors, I would just have to lie down on the street. I wouldn't care. I mean, I've lost all kind of caring for these kind of things, because, but yeah, I would have to lie down because I would be hit with this wave. And I was told that in order to get the most benefit from this wave, I had to be still. So I would lie in the ground. And this happened for like maybe 7 months. Every hour I would get these waves and I would have to be still. There's so many things. I mean, the change in my whole digestive system sometimes causes discomfort still. But pain has changed for me. What I used to call pain, I don't feel it as pain anymore. It's I just feel it as, let's say, growing pains, like an upgrade. Like this is, I'm transforming. So therefore, I'm not feeling, oh God, pain. I'm feeling, yay, upgrade, transformation. So my relationship with pain has changed. So it doesn't feel, it doesn't feel, it feels it's for me and working for me. So it's much softer and lighter, and I've also learned how to expand my field so I can reduce pain or dissolve pain completely. So that's also part of the journey. But yes, I feel nearly every day still, I feel the transformations happening. Sometimes it feels beautiful. I'm just sharing with you now the uncomfortable ones, but often it feels like bliss states and incredibly amazing. But I was just, because most people don't want to hear that, because that's, most people want to hear the hard, the uncomfortable stuff that no one ever talks about. So yes, it's not always comfortable, the changes, but the joy of the transformation always surpasses the discomfort. Does that answer? Thank you for the question.
Hi, thank you for sharing everything with us. Maybe you shared this at the beginning. I was not here. My question is made of 2 parts. One, you seem to have withdrawn from society at some point, and the question is what led you to this and the spiritual path that you are on? And the second question is, or part of this question is, when you are back in society, do you feel joy of being there? When you're with no food, we're asking this because some of us are still a lot out there, still.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. Yeah, so the first one, so I'll answer the second one first, because I remember it. Yes, I do feel joy being with people. I'm very excited, especially here because. You're all on the same page, you're all have an interest in this. So it's very exciting for me to share and be with people who actually are sharing this way of being. So I'm inspired, yeah. I think for me, I withdrew years ago, like I withdrew 10 years ago. Did you hear when I was talking about going to China? Yeah. So I just went to live in China to study Qigong for 2 years. And then from that experience, prior to that, I was in Ireland and I knew that I had a calling, an inner calling that actually told me that I had to drop into my true potential. They were the words. You need to drop into your true potential, because time is running out. So, and I had gone through a breakdown. I had a breakthrough. And during this breakdown, this is when this happened. And it took me 1 year to recover. So I was doing yoga and trying to eat healthy. And I couldn't stand yoga, actually. I just used to hate it. But I used to go every day for an hour because it was good for me, to come back into my body. And then after that, during that period, I had the sense that I needed to drop into my true potential and go. So for me, I went to China and I just left everything. I left my home, my business, I sold everything and decided to to follow spirit and to find a way to drop into my true potential. And then I never stopped. I'm still I'm still doing that. So yes, I'm alone. I do spend time alone, but most of my time. But yeah, I also love. I love humans. I love Earthlings. I think they're really quirky, and yeah, I adore humans. I do enjoy it. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Oh yeah.
So I just want to thank you for your sharing. It was very open and heartwarming. And aliens, it's such a cool thing. Like, who talks about aliens these days? Like, so cool. And we're just like me and Ragnar. And when you're talking with your interaction, the reptilian in me is so happy. Every sides of us acknowledge and enjoy your sharing. It's so open and intimate.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, when we start to expand in consciousness, we start to see the unseen. We start to see with our middle eye. Everything is here. It's just most people can't see it, right? It's all around us. There's beings, honestly, I mean, there's loads of beings here. There's loads of inner earth beings that live just a little bit under the crust, but also further. They're here. There's loads of there's beings that live just under the crust, like nature beings that look after the earth. There's loads of them here. But there's also off-planet beings here. But it's just most people can't see them. And I met them about 6 years ago, when my friend had a serious car crash, and I met the first off-planet being I met with a physical form was like a praying mantis. Huge, big, like praying mantis with the big eyes and the hands like this, the green. This was the first off-planet being that I met, but it was like, as high as that lamp, and sort of a gold color with a sort of like a purple kind of cloak, like you're wearing. So this was the first off-planet being that I met, and since then I've met thousands, and I work with quite a few as well, and they're just like us. They're just like us, but they just live in other dimensions, and that's why many people can't see them. But that's changing, because the shift in consciousness is changing. So, but they also come in ways that won't scare you. Like semi-translucent at the start. But eventually they can come. Some of them can actually materialize into the physical world, but we have to raise our consciousness. They lower theirs, and that's how we meet. But some of them can take on a physical form. And yes, the first time I saw that, I was terrified. It takes time to get used to it, just because we're not. But it sounds like you're familiar with that, so it won't be too long before you're seeing them. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you talk more about the light body?
The light body? Yeah, sure. Thank you for your question. So our light body is created from, there's 3 diamonds in the body. Right? There's a lower diamond, there's a central diamond, and then there's an upper diamond that's here. That sort of goes from the roof of the mouth up to the gland here. That's a small one. And really, they look like diamonds, but they're double pyramids. It's like a pyramid above the ground and a pyramid beneath the ground. And so it's like we have 3 double pyramids in the body. And within these, like a lot of people talk about chakras. So, for example, the lower chakras, everything below the heart, all those chakras will be in the lower diamond. The what's called the heart chakra and the sacred heart, let's say. All the heart chakras are in the central diamond and the upper chakras are in the upper diamond. Let me see how much time. So, first of all, we have to become familiar with these 3 diamonds. So we have to, like, for example, spend time in like a lot of time, say, in meditation, where you empty the mind. Like you empty the mind, so it's like an empty rice bowl. So you learn how to have no mind. You learn just how to, it's like, basically it's the same as daydreaming. I encourage everyone to daydream as much as possible because this is no mind, right? This is actually when we move into the higher state of consciousness, which is imagination. So 5th dimensional consciousness is actually what we call, 5th dimensional thinking is what we call imagination, right? So that's why it's so important to daydream a lot. And this helps you access the upper diamond, right? This is a really simplified version, right? Simplified way to explain it in a nutshell. I'm trying to do a speedy one. So it's just having a soft mind. It's having a soft mind. And spending time in silence really helps to cultivate a soft, empty mind. And this brings an opening and awareness to the upper diamond. Then the lower diamond is accessed, well, for me, I accessed it through Qigong, which is learning how to bring all your focus, all your awareness inside. So your mind goes inside. The heart goes inside into the belly. It's just like behind the belly button or in the small intestine. And you can even start to see a little spiral going around, like a little dragon, like a baby dragon, or like a little sperm or something, just going round and round and round, or this way, round and round and round. So heart and mind go inside. Everything goes inside into the belly, and you learn how to keep focusing everything inside the belly. Okay, so this gathers the chi, cultivates the chi, and stores the chi, so that this center can open. Okay, so this center is about emptying, about the empty rice bowl. This is what opens this one. This one is about gathering and bringing the chi and all your focus into this center. This is like the cosmic womb. Every man has a womb also. A woman has a physical womb, but she also has an energetic womb. And men have energetic wombs. And this is the cosmic womb. This is like the great Sophia, the great void. Everything comes from here. Everything goes back. It's like the Milky Way galaxy, right? It's just an empty void. When you really focus, it starts to disappear. So the top of your body is not connected to the bottom. There's just an empty space when you really connect with this diamond. So this is a real quick version of how to connect with these things, right? So this is So all your focus staying there and bringing your attention there, even holding your hands in front of there and just feeling the energy going inside. Or even sometimes it's hard, but you can even just feel the energy in the outside of the hands going inside. So this is a way to start to, it's like you're seeing, it's like your eyes are inside there and you see the world from your belly. So what you're constantly doing is you're bringing everything inside. Then the heart. The heart again is seeing everything from the heart. So it's about being intimate. It's about intimacy. It's about intimacy with yourself. Your relationship with yourself. Your relationship with your feelings, your thoughts, your actions, your behavior. And then from there, it's about your intimacy with others. Okay, how you connect with others. And yeah, this is really nice because it's really warm, it's really tangible, it's really having deep intimacy and connection with other people. Real. You cut through all the bullshit. There's absolutely zero bullshit. You pull people up on things, you pull yourself up on things. It's really refreshing. It's truth. It's a really beautiful place of just intimacy. Okay, so this is a very simplified version. And again, it's intimacy with yourself, intimacy with nature, intimacy with your environment, right? That's why I like intimacy, like, looking into the grass and looking at the little animals in the grass, looking at that piece is bent, looking and listening to the grass, listening to the sound of the earth, listening to the insects. Learning how to listen is also a part of intimacy, because that's how you can become intimate, right? By listening. Okay, so this is just 3 steps of how to access the diamonds. And then what happens is it's a process. It's a process that happens, I guess, almost naturally in the body. I know there's some people that teach this as well. There's different schools that teach this. For me, it just happened naturally when I was in the Himalayas. But I guess it can be taught, or it can be by actually really exploring the 3 diamonds by yourself, like I did, and really cultivating the 3. It activates the process of the light body, where the upper diamond, let's say, moves. This is a very simplified version. The upper diamond moves down into the the center diamond will invite the upper and lower diamond to join. So eventually the upper and lower diamond come and they meet in the center. Then you have these 3 diamonds together. I don't know how to make this simple. So I'm going to cut out a whole lot and then just say that they connect, let's say, and they start to. There's other processes that happen in the pineal gland, right? There's energy that actually goes up from. So these connect. Then energy shoots up into the top of the head, connects with the pineal gland, the pituitary gland. Then energy shoots back down, right? And then the energy that shoots back down creates the rotation, creates the movement, right? The cycle, which is a movement like this. It goes around. And the 3 diamonds start to rotate around each other. And then this forms a higher level of consciousness where you're inviting in sacred, let's say it's called sacred geometry, okay? You're inviting in new forms of energy. It's like a plasmic energy, right? And then these rotate, they get larger and larger and larger. This is a very quick version. It sort of expands into your body. So your whole body becomes a diamond, right? Your entire body is in shape of the double pyramid. And eventually this keeps getting larger and larger, moving, until it expands out to the sides. Okay. So it sort of looks like a saucer, like a spaceship, a traditional version of it, like a flying saucer. And that's what our light bodies actually look like. Our light bodies look like flying saucers. And we use these light bodies to move through different dimensions. So we're able to, so we're not stuck, because the physical body needs to stay in the physical realm. But when we have our light body, the light body is not fixed by consciousness, by frequency. So it can travel through all the different frequencies and dimensions. And this is what we use to travel interdimensionally, is our light body. And it literally looks like a flying saucer. And it's very bright. It's very, looks like a star. Very, very bright. And then that's the first light body. And then after that, there's numerous, as you raise your frequency, there's numerous more light bodies. I mean, I don't know, because for me it seems infinite. It seems like there's an infinite amount. And with each light body has a different range of things that are possible and not possible. depending on your ability to resonate in certain dimensions. I don't want to get too complicated, but so basically this is the first light body, and then from there there's many more light bodies that you keep expanding into, so you can basically go to higher levels, higher dimensions. So that's a really simplified version. Does that answer your question? Did that answer your question? Oh, you've no mic. Yeah. You can even just talk loud. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thanks first for your explanation about everything. My English is not so good, but I try to improve. Oui, d'accord. Fernanda, help me. En fait, ce que je souhaite savoir.
So, what I would like to know, please.
Par rapport à quand on atteint le corps de lumière.
So, when we access the light body.
Donc, j'ai un peu le trac. Quand on atteint le corps de lumière et qu'on est à une vie pranique.
And that we are at a Breatharian state of consciousness.
Pour moi, est-ce qu'après on a la capacité, enfin, à mon avis, on a la capacité d'aider tous les êtres en souffrance, comme les bodhisattvas.
Do we have then the capacity to help all the beings who are suffering, like the bodhisattvas?
To what?
To help all the beings who are in sufferance in the world, like bodhisattvas. Do we have this capacity when we move into our light body?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, we do, and that's also.
Oui, on a cette capacité.
Are you finished? Or? Yes. Yeah. So yes, we do have that capacity, and yes, what begins to happen is that we can sit. This has to be a conscious choice, because this can also just happen to you. You have to agree to this, because this will naturally come. This will naturally happen. That you will start to take on the suffering of the planet and people on the planet. So if you don't want to do it, you have to be very clear that you don't want to do it. But if you do, you can designate times where you sit, and it could be for hours, and you just basically you sit and hold space, and you witness and you feel immense suffering and immense pain, and you see it and you experience it as if you're there. So it's really intense. So it's something that you really need to be consciously choosing, because it's not easy, because you also feel it coming through you, but oftentimes you actually experience it like if it's actually happening to you. So yes, it's very beneficial. I did it for 3 years, and I'm not doing it anymore. Maybe I'll do it again, but right now I'm not doing it. And it requires you to hold a really high state of consciousness, and because this can come through you for hours and hours and hours and hours, and you can physically feel it in your body, like you're being raped, you're being murdered, you're raping, you're murdering. Like it's very real. So So it's important, first of all, that you know this, that you're aware of this, and that you have the capacity to realize that it's not you, you're not engaging, you're holding the space for this. So it's really, really important to make a conscious choice, because very often this just happens. This starts to happen to people who move into their light bodies. And sometimes they feel that they don't have a choice. But we always have a choice. We choose. Okay? Like that's part of self-mastery. We choose all the time. But yes, it is something really beautiful to do, and it's part of being of service. And but it's tough enough. It's not easy. So thank you for the question. Yeah.
I was wondering, you just said that the physical body is confined to this dimension. Some of us have had the experience of dematerializing. So did you ever have the experience of dematerializing or becoming invisible, and do you have an explanation for that?
Yeah, that's a cool question, yeah. Well, yes, I have. I had the experience of part of my training in the mystery school with the Elohim is bilocation. So first of all, in bilocation, we learn how to send our consciousness into another place, so that we can see the other place, we're in it, we can smell it, touch it, feel it, and describe it. And yes, this takes time. It's taken me like 3 years, 2015. And then the second part is that you learn to take your body vehicle. So yes, I've taken my body vehicle 3 times. And and then this was in the Himalayas. So the frequency was really high up in the mountains. So I guess that assisted me also to do it, the high levels of energy that was there. Plus I was supported by my team, my off-planet team. But I was able to materialize my body into a little cafe that I used to go for the internet. And I met a girl, because I was really early, who was cleaning, and she spoke to me. So my body was actually in 2 places at once. So my body was in this cafe speaking to this girl who was cleaning, a Tibetan lady, but it was also sitting in my little house on top of the mountain. This was the only time that someone saw me. So it was confirmed by her seeing. I did it 2 other times, but there was no one there. So even though I know it happened, there was no confirmation from another being. But yeah, it requires a huge amount of discipline and focus, and hours of training every day. And I haven't been doing it over the last year. But another part of expansion into the light body is that we start to embody our other incarnations that live in parallel lives. So 2 years ago, when I just started the process, when I stopped eating and drinking, I embodied 2 other people, which is embodiment is actually feeling that you're in their body, changing your posture, seeing your hands change, seeing your face in the mirror, not you lose your face. And one of them was an Italian monk called Padre Pio, and I was and I was never Christian or religious. I was horrified that he was one of my he was my embodiment. This happened after 3 weeks of when I stopped eating and drinking. I started to embody him. I saw my hands when I was gardening with these dirty gloves, and they smelt. And I was like, oh, this smells like an old man. And it took time, and then I started getting the name Pio, Pio, Pio. And then eventually I looked it up, and, he was an Italian, mystic, right? And he died 3.5 years before this body vehicle arrived. And he has been an instigator in also teaching me bilocation, because he also had skills in that. So I have training from him and also the Elohim. So But I'm really slow learner. So, and Padre Pio is like really, ba, 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 he's really sort of hardcore. So I prefer working with the Elohim who are softer. Padre Pio is quite, he's quite sort of strict and stuff. But he's really a good teacher, and he's, funnily enough, an Italian mystic monk. But I love him now. I adore him. He's incredible. So so thank you for that cool question. Sorry?
Do you have a tip for us, those of us who dematerialize without knowing where they go?
Without knowing.
I'm honest.
So you're material. You're dematerializing.
Sometimes, but I'm not consciously doing it. My friends or bosses sometimes don't see it.
So you're doing it, but you don't know where you go?
I don't know where I go, and don't know when I'm doing it. But sometimes my friends or cars on the street don't see me, and it's kind of dangerous.
No, it's not dangerous, because you're at a different level of consciousness. So the car will just drive through you.
Got scared.
Yeah, you're not. This happened to me twice. A motorbike drove right through my body. And another time I drove down nearly on top of a motorbike, because you're vibrating at a different frequency. You're in a light body.
Yes.
So that means that instead of your cells being that close together, they're that close. Yeah, there's light. Yes. So you become more transparent. Yes. So you move through things. You move through solid things, or they move through you. Mm-hmm. So you won't be
run over.
No,
Okay.
you won't be.
It's good to know.
But you should start to consciously. You can play with this. You can consciously ask to go somewhere. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But just take command of the situation. Mm-hmm. Yes. Right? It's important to take command and step into your self-mastery with this, because right now you're saying, "Oh, it's just taking me and everything." It's important to raise your bar, to go to the next level, yes, and say, "Yes, okay, I can do this. So now I'm going to go where I want to go." Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And step into that sort of certainty and command.
Yes.
And it's just having that certainty and command, then you'll be able to choose. It's all about being consciously choose where you want to go. Because right now you're feeling it's more powerful than you, in a way that it's just taking me, and I don't know.
I'm feeling it's just something I didn't have time to practice yet. It's just something I'll get to at some point, But now it's just happening randomly.
That's beautiful, though. It's amazing, isn't it? It's fun, right?
It is.
It's really, really fun. Yeah. Thank you, lovey. Cool question. Okay.
The last question.
It's 7:30.
Somebody more.
The boss speaking.
Somebody very. Okay, I'm sorry. This won't be such a nice story question. First of all, thank you very, very much for your lovingly openness, for your very open heart and sharing very deep stories with us. Thank you really very much.
Welcome.
Now it's a little. There comes the story from. It's a logical misunderstanding from my part.
Sure.
I love this sentence you said 2 times. There are no beliefs. All beliefs are wrong. I love that. But logically I don't understand, because several things you have explained for me. Maybe I don't know exactly what you mean by beliefs. Because, for example, the stories you talk about light bodies, or what you believe, what you need, for example, nature and environmental positions, if you are in society or if you are in nature or go swimming, it sounds like a belief or a strategy or a structure you need to do something. So cause and effect and beliefs. So you know what my misunderstanding is?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, first of all.
Yeah, very good question. Thank you. So for me, I just go by experience, So like I've no idea. I mean, because there's no books that teach you what it's like to live in a light body. I haven't had any, teachers saying, okay, this is what you do, this is what happens next. So far, I've just been sort of going blind, and just from my experience saying, okay, when I was in the city, I contracted, so then I had to expand my field, right? And I know that expanding my field is easy to do in nature, because nature holds the highest consciousness. So yes, I'm doing that, but it's in the moment. It's in the moment it's happening. It's not a belief. It's not something I know or I think I know. It's just that when I'm there, I feel better. So it's not that I believe this, because no one ever told me that. It's never been a structure. But what I mean by eventually all beliefs are limitations, I'll use your example as an example, right? So for me, when I started, my light body started reducing, and I could feel the city coming in, and I was, okay, I know the trees will help me, right? So I go out to the trees, I expand, I feel better, right? But because let's say, I'm work in progress. So I'm aware that this is limiting, right? I'm aware that this is limiting me, and I am beyond that, I am beyond that. But because it's brand new, I have to go, everything I share is because I've experienced it first. I don't share anything with anybody ever unless I've gone through the experience, But then when I experience something, then I have to go beyond my experience. I have to go always beyond what I've learned, right? And that's the part of busting the beliefs, in a way. You experience something in the moment, even if it's new, but then you have to bust that. You have to go beyond that, So for me, my experience in the city, then I have to go beyond that. I have to find ways to go beyond that, expand my consciousness to see what the next right path is, the next right step. So whatever we learn, we always have to have the experience, but then we always have to go beyond it. Like if you're teaching me something, I'll listen to what you're teaching me, but then what I'll do is I'll go off and I'll go beyond what you've taught me. And then I'll teach someone and they'll go beyond what I've taught them. So that's what I mean, in a way. Does that sort of answer?
I think so. If I get it right, I need to ask if I understood it in the right way. Maybe I talk.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So did I get that right? That this seems to be the level of your experiences, and these beliefs come after this experience. Like, I needed this, but it doesn't necessarily mean in future you need it. So you naturally you go beyond it, and it doesn't need to be the truth and the belief for future. But this was your experience. Yeah. So maybe I misunderstood, and maybe people can misunderstand that this needs to be done, and this belief is like that. So I have to be like that in future also. But it was just at this moment, in this phase of experiencing the body and life itself.
Yeah, that's
Did I understand that right?
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Exactly. That's really a beautiful way to say it. Yeah, it's much better than my way. Cool. I love that. Yeah, thank you. And maybe I can share like that next time. I'll take your words. I like the way you share that. Yeah, and because we have had the structure in the third dimensional world that beliefs are set. That the beliefs are set, and they're a truth, and a truth is a truth and can't be changed. But from my experience, there's always a higher truth, and when you experience a higher truth, it never negates the lower truth. The lower truth is still true, but then it's just a higher truth. And then when you experience that for a while, you get to know that there's a higher truth again. You know, and that still doesn't negate the two lower truths. They can still be, but you're not fixed by them. You know, you just let them be. You let them play out, but you're not fixed by them. Because from my experience to date, there's always a higher truth. But we just have to sort of experience it a little bit until we have the realization that there's a higher truth. There's something bigger and bigger.
And the lower truth seems then not true anymore, for me at least. As I understood what you just beautifully said, there comes the higher truth, and it doesn't negate the lower truth, but the lower truth, it seems not true for some people anymore, as they don't need food anymore or don't need to drink anymore. So maybe it doesn't negate, but it's not true anymore for some other.
Yeah, so you're just not negating it for everybody, you know. You're just because we can only share by experience, and you can't, tell someone who just is really fixed on and has never had the experience you've had. You can't say, wow, well, water's like this. Imagine someone has never been in water before. And how are you going to explain what it's like to be in water? Well, you move, it's so cold, it's warm. It's really hard to do that. The person, it's so difficult for you to explain what it's like to be in water to someone who's never been, So it's all about experience. So people really have to experience something to know it. We have to experience to know. And humans have been taught that they can just know by learning. But you can't. You can only know by experiencing. But then just because you've learned by experience, it doesn't negate then, it doesn't negate it for everyone else. And it's still a truth somewhere in some frequency, in some dimension. It's still a reality, it's still a truth. But maybe it's just one that isn't a trigger for you, that's not important for you anymore. It doesn't trigger you. If something triggers you, it still has a hook in you, But if it doesn't, it just washes off you. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter whether you think you need food or not. It's irrelevant. It's some people do, some people don't. It's not important anymore. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You get to the point where it actually doesn't matter whether you think you do or you think you don't, or both, neither, because it goes beyond that. Does that make sense? I don't want to be going too big or anything, but does that make kind of sense? Yeah. Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Sofia. It was amazing. Thank you so much.